trace my record button. Shalom. Good evening from Jerusalem, Israel. This is Mr. Lowell Joseph Gallen, founder of the Root Branch Association Limited, established in the United States of God of Israel, bless America, in New York State in 1981, now celebrating our 44th year. Today is Wednesday, January 15, 2025, in the Gregorian calendar. Now that it is after nightfall, it is the onset of the 16th day of the 10th Israelite Hebrew month of Tevet in the Hebrew Israelite calendar, year 5785. Welcome to episode 31 of our monthly seminar, Ancient Roots Mothering, Roots, Nettles, and Sage, with three mighty women of the God of Israel, Mrs. Gilla Weiss in Florida, and Mrs. J. Rivkah Asoulin in the Lower Galilee here in Eretz Yisrael, and Mrs. Chava Dagan in the northern Negev of Eretz Yisrael, and welcoming their special guest speaker for this evening, Mrs. Betina Thorball from Lucerne, Switzerland, or actually near Lucerne, Switzerland. Welcome, ladies, and your guests from the United States, I can see that, and from the land of Israel. So please support everyone's work here. The links will be below. Gilla, Rivkah, and Chava all have websites with the wonderful products and services they offer, individually and together. And if Mrs. Thorball has as well, we'll include that also. And now, without further ado, let me hand over the mic to Rivkah, Chava, Gilla, and Betina. Ladies, it's all yours.
Welcome, welcome. We have a very special show today, something that I don't know, I think we needed some years and some age to be able to do it. And we couldn't have done it right at the beginning. Yes, we are talking about aging, the aging process for ladies, and some of the things that people don't really talk about that might be helpful or have been helpful to us. I'd like to begin with a song that Chava found that really kind of encapsulates the experience. So if you'll bear with me for just a moment.
Listen to the words.
Right. Okay, hang on. Okay, hang on. There was a technical problem because I'm showing a blank screen. Were you able to see the screen?
We saw it and then it disappeared.
Saw it and it disappeared. That's very exciting. Let's try that again. Okay, you should be able to see now, I hope.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, we'll try one more time and three's the charm. Right.
Ciao, ciao.
I took my love, took it down.
Okay, no one can see you.
Give me a minute. Are you able to hear it?
Just
No.
the beginning.
Hang on. It's worth it. Believe me.
I took my love, took it down. climbed a mountain and I turned around, and I saw my reflection in the snow-covered hills, till the landslide brought me down. Oh, mirror in the sky, what is love? Can the child within my heart rise above? Can I sail through the changing ocean tides? Can I handle the seasons of my life? Well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I've built my life around you. But time makes you bolder, even children get older, and I'm getting older too. Well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I've built my life around you. But time makes you bolder, even children get older, and I'm getting older too. Oh, I'm getting older too. Ah, take my love, take it down. Ah, climb a mountain and turn around. And if you see my reflection in the snow-covered hills, where the landslide will bring it down. And if you see my reflection in the snow-covered hills, well, the landslide will bring it down. Oh, the landslide will bring it down.
Okay, so I hope everyone could hear that. My screen goes on, making noise. Okay. So now our guest, Betina, wrote a very, very beautiful piece of advice to me as I was talking about some of the things with her that I was experiencing. My friend and colleague, I should introduce everyone to Dr. Betina Thorball. One of my dearest friends and partners in Ancient Roots Israel. And anyway, she wrote me this beautiful thing to help guide me through my journey towards this middle age and beyond process, or as I like to call it, the menopausal process. And I wanted to share that with you right now. A little excerpt from that. In the age we are entering now, changes happen. I feel that a woman is very much a plant. We grow when young, still rattled by the wind to here and there, still loose in our roots. We might be uprooted and plug in our roots again, and eventually we grow a more woody, sturdy stem and have our flowers, the children, and they are beautiful and the best in the world. Then the flowers mature and go to seed, and the seeds blow out into the world or are preparing to do so. Then the plant juices start moving downwards into the roots, into the earth. We move towards, through menopause. We connect more deeply with our own roots, with the roots of our ancestors, with the wisdom of the earth, with our sense of self. As the juices flow less into making and sustaining flower and seed, they go strongly back to us. Parts of us that have been silent, that have rested for a bigger purpose. In many cases, our old identity might become louder again. Our own wishes and needs are demanding attention and have a louder voice. And this is sometimes hard, as our past and present are often very different and not necessarily compatible. Isn't that beautiful? And it's because Betina wrote that to me that we decided to invite her here to share more about the process with us. So we are all in various stages. Some are older, some are younger. But it's a process, just like puberty was a process for all of us. We probably started puberty, our body, our minds, our brains, everything changing around the age of maybe 12-ish, give or take, and continued that up for about 10 years till our early 20s, kind of creating the foundations of the women that we were to become, kind of the foundation, the springboard with which we go into life. And the menopausal process is much the same. It's a long process. It isn't just about periods stopping. It's a change in body, mind, spirit, understanding, wisdom, tastes, everything. And certainly we hope that this will apply to a lot of people who may be somewhere in that 10 plus or minus year process as well. So I'd like to pass it over. Who'd like to begin? Gilla, you're muted.
I didn't mean to raise my hand. I was scratching, but okay, just throw me in. Hey, everybody. We're so excited for today because this is one of those topics that is dreaded by most women. Most women try to put off menopause, the change, aging gracefully. Most women are of us all, we've been conditioned this way. You know, as in the culture worshiping the beauty of youth. You know, we're young, we create life. We have these babies, we nourish, we nurse, we raise them. We're on this roller coaster of hormones to procreate, and that's what drives our very essence of our being. It drives our everything, what we do, how we repress ourselves, how we express ourselves, and how much we give up to raise our kids. And we do, and it's for a bigger purpose, and it gives meaning to our lives. And then our beautiful children grow, and they're always going to need us, and they're always going to have space in our heart, and they're always going to trigger us. But at the same time, we're no longer creating these babies. So we have to take the time to stop a moment and think and breathe. And a lot that has to do with us helping us through this, like a butterfly, it's a metamorphosis. And we can have an amazing transition. Just like in birth, transition can be so intense and can be painful, but the growth, and it's exhilarating as well as we gather our strength inward and we go towards birth. So this is the same thing. As we age, we look around us and we associate aging with rigidity, with holding on to things, with old, cranky old women and cranky old men. And believe me, there is reason for that, because stuff does come up, what we didn't deal with as we were young and beautiful and strong and creating life, we will have to deal with as we age. But when we use, going inside, embracing ourselves, forgiving ourselves, loving ourselves, and letting go of so much, we don't need to be rigid. We can flow with change. We don't need to create babies. We can create so much else. We can have a second career, a third career. We crave meaningful relationships, and we can start with someone we meet on a bus or a train or in a store. Look someone in the eyes. When you hug your neighbor or your friend, make it meaningful. So all of these things can help us to celebrate. Put your hand on that pouch. Everybody, you know who you are. We all have that belly. Open YouTube up and it will tell you how to get rid of belly fat. And that, after age 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, you're going to have that belt. Put your hand, love that little belly there. When we were pregnant, we used to rub our bellies. Now people look at their bellies and say, go away. Hug that pouch, because that pouch helps you through the change. That pouch helps you with estrogen. That pouch helps you love your body that gave life. Love that pouch. Hold on to it. Be proud of it. Don't suck it in when you walk. Walk with it. Put your hand on it. Show people. My body is good. This body gave birth and carried 8 babies. This body has a little bit of a pouch, and I'm grateful for that little bit of estrogen. Why would I want to give it away? So put your hands on your belly, take a deep breath, and love it, because it's going to serve you well.
Great.
Betina,
Let's go more into the physical changes, because there is that pouch and the belly fat, this extra amount of belly fat. Now, we're not advocating for obesity, because that's not healthy. What we're saying is that it is normal for 10 to 15 pounds or somewhere in that range, depending on who you are and your body and your type. It's a normal occurrence to get some extra belly fat as you approach menopause. And that belly fat helps in the production of estrogen when the ovaries start to back off and the uterus starts to back off. So that's really important and really special. Betina, maybe you can talk some more about that, the physical changes that we might expect.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here today. It's just a pleasure. Yeah, I think we're being taught very little about this phase of our life, right? I mean, we head into it. Before I answer your question directly, I just want to say this because in today's society, like it seems like it's the end of womanhood when you go into this period, right? We live in a society where everything is being made about the outer beauty, and if anything, when that comes closer, you feel you are losing. Yet, I mean, nature is an equilibrium. So, I mean, where it takes, it also gives. So for me, it was the hugest revelation in the world when I just felt, what understanding comes, what thoughts come, what lightness in many other ways comes. So I mean, it's beautiful what you said, Gilla. It's certainly very, very important to embrace this and trust nature that it has a plan for us, and this is also a plan. But of course, it helps us to understand some of the details, right? So your question is very, very good, Rivkah, and I think very few women know that once your ovaries stop working, when you have passed through menopause, your body will still require estrogen, and that is what, Gilla, you've been hinting at. I mean, that estrogen is made in those nice pouches, as you called it. I felt like a kangaroo when you were talking. That was a nice image in my head, So it's important, as Rivkah says, nobody wants to get obese, because it is also very, very important that we do watch our calorie intake at that period in our life, because the fire burns a bit slower. I mean, when before I could have easily, swallowed these 3-4 pieces of cake and there would have been absolutely no consequences, the burn rate is somewhat lower. And it is good to restrict your calories a little bit. We know that this is very good for low inflammation in your body, to not overeat. But you will still notice, even if you keep a good nutrition and diet, that just your body changes. Different parts, the distribution of the fat changes. And guess what? Nature made that for us, because there in these layers is where our body produces the estrogen we so much need. So that is, I love it, Gilla, how you talk about embracing this and not tugging it in, you know. It's a really good thing. Yeah, and on the other hand, you stay healthy. I think many women feel a natural inner voice in that period, actually, to become more conscious about their health. Just today, I was talking to another woman that said, well, somehow the things I used to do all my life, I mean, now suddenly they don't feel so good anymore. I said, guess what? I mean, your body's going through major changes. As you said, Rivkah, before, go back to when you were in puberty. Goodness me, buff, everybody changes. I mean, every day we wake up and our skin almost itches before we understand, you know, where we are. It's not as daunting because we know more, we are wiser, we are more experienced, we have had time to form a deeper friendship with our own body, which means this is a beautiful period, ladies. It is actually a beautiful period, and the worst of it is that the medical system wants you to believe that this is a disease. Oh, we have all these drugs for menopause. We have all these drugs also for flu. It's like, goodness me, do I have a disease now? You know, shall I not meet you? So this is the worst of it, I find, and it's very important. Don't let yourself get sucked into this at all. It is absolutely not a disease. It's one of the most natural things that, after we've done our wonderful job, as Gilla explained so nicely, raised these babies, these children, nature actually has a reward for us, and it's a cool one.
A reward. I think most ladies don't think about menopause as a reward at all. The fire burns slower. I love that. And it isn't just the metabolism of fire that's burning slower. We're needing to move a bit slower. The body starts to tighten up and freeze up. I was telling the ladies that I have a friend and she came over and she was demonstrating for me how every time after she sits, she stands up from her chair and she has to walk like this until everything loosens up again. And it does loosen up. And I'm finding my morning yoga necessary instead of a luxury or some nice time to myself. I have to get my body warmed up to go into the day. Otherwise, I'm not feeling good in my body. So that's a couple of things I wanted to mention there. Chava, maybe you could add something here. I know we want to cover hair loss as well.
So along those lines, definitely what you're saying is there's so many changes going on, and a huge part of it is this hormonal transition. And part of that hormonal transition is all of these changes. And as we go through this and watch our hair turn gray or start thinning or whatever, we might, and I know so many women do, all of a sudden they're hit with, well, I knew the numbers were going up, but now I'm actually looking in the mirror and I'm seeing it, and I feel not myself anymore. I feel like my grandma. I feel like those old ladies that I see walking on the street, and I'm like, oh, I'll never be. Yes, we all come to it, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing. But I think this kind of depression might set in, and I know it does for a lot of women when this kind of tidal wave hits you when you're looking back in the mirror and it's not the same face that you were looking at for all those 40 whatever years. And there can be a depression, and then either you embrace, as we're talking about, and come out of this depression if you went into it, or so many get stuck in it. They get stuck in this, I'm not beautiful anymore, I'm not what I used to be, I'm not doing my own things, I'm not in that same place anymore. And you can eat your way through the day trying to come up, and like Betina was saying, we can't handle that calorie intake anymore. And so all kinds of things can come out. You start gaining weight, and now your hair is, and then and it's just like a tidal wave that you can get yourself into when it doesn't need to be that way. We really, really need to look at ourselves when we're looking in the mirror, instead of saying, oh, look at this and look at this. Look in your own eyes. oh my gosh, you're still the same human being that you used to be in. And walking yourself through these hormonal changes, it's something you really have to come to terms with, because if you don't, you'll just constantly be putting this mental cycle into your head. I'm not good enough anymore. I'm getting old. I'm getting this. And you really age yourself by talking yourself into this, young me versus old me. It doesn't have to be that way. So yeah.
Yeah, that's Betina talks about the anti-aging. Maybe you want to mention something about that
Yeah,
now.
I love that. Isn't it great? This whole industry that is sprouting up right now, where they call it's the anti-aging industry. We have all this anti-aging treatment. I mean, to me, anti-aging means I'm not getting old, so I die young. People look always a bit surprised at me when I say that. Well, I don't want anti-aging. I actually want to reach a very high age. But I loved what you said, Chava, about this. You're aging yourself. Because I mean, this is certainly true. I mean, at that point, you of course have the option to stand in front of the mirror and wonder every single day if that little wrinkle or that little spot was there yesterday or not. And you can become obsessive about that, obviously. But I would hope that what also, as I was talking about the gift, this period of your life, give you some space to actually enjoy some of the things that are inside you. And some of the things you can get back to. We'll come to that later, I know. And if your focus is there, you actually forget to look into the mirror, because suddenly you have all this time again. You have space for yourself, and you have things to discover. And so I think it's very, very important to hold on to this thought of don't age yourself, by manifesting that, by visualizing that.
Yeah. And just another quick comment about the foods. We discussed, but maybe just to hit it a little harder, getting out of old food habits at this time. So it's like Betina said, I could eat 4 slices of cake and do just fine, and there weren't any consequences. We all have food habits, if it's like snacking on a bag of chips or whatever it is. And it may not be appropriate. And that listening, as we already touched on, listening to your body to know what's right and wrong for you, and you have to tune in. And that's kind of the common theme, what Betina wrote that I read in the beginning, that tuning inside to listen, what is good for you and what's going to feel good in your body. And if you don't, your body's going to start letting you know right away. So you might as well pay attention to those signs as well. Just to close out the physical characteristics, I want to discuss hair loss because it happened to me. And we know all about male pattern baldness, but there's a female pattern baldness as well. A lot of people don't know that. And for me, I have a large family, thank God, and I had tons of hair. Tons. When I was a little girl, everyone would talk about how I had enough hair for 3 people. I had so much hair. And thank God my daughter has this huge mane as well. And it was great. And I had a baby, and it's normal after the baby when you're breastfeeding and after birth and you lose some hair. So I didn't think much of it. And the hair grew back and it was fine. And then baby number 2. And as many of us know who've had multiple children or who have had children later in life, there comes a point for some of us that the hair that falls out after the last child just doesn't come back. So that was really shocking to me. Part of it was for me reaching into my herbal medicine bag to find the right herbs that could help stimulate hair growth. Best case scenario, and worst case scenario, I give myself a little head massage on a regular basis, which was also a best case scenario. So it was all fine. But another thing that I did was realize that I needed to cut my hair because it was getting very upsetting for me to lose clumps and clumps of hair when I had all this long hair. And so I did. I made those changes. And husbands get used to a certain look, kids get used to a certain look, you get used to a certain look. It's a big change. I'm not saying every person needs to cut their hair, as you can see, and even on this panel, we have long locks. But it may be that, and my hair did start coming back. It's never going to be what it was, but I do have, a good head of hair now. However, that's part of the process. That may be part of the process for some people, and it may involve another haircut. There's no need to like get it. I was having a visceral emotional reaction to see all this hair in my clumps of hair. And when I cut my hair, I still had hair, but not as much. So I started feeling a little bit calmer about it, and then, could kind of relax and think straight and address that issue. So I just wanted to share that. Any other things we should cover about the physical changes before we move on?
Yeah, maybe one thing. I mean, it is in many women's life a period where there's still a lot of stress in our life. We might still strive to be professionally successful while raising our children and taking care of the family. And I think when you feel you're starting to head through menopause, as much as you can, it would be really good to downtone a little bit. Because what's happening also, as you know, Rivkah, also is that the adrenal glands are also taking over a lot of functions that are being lost through this process. And if they're taxed very hard, I mean, if you're leading an incredibly stressful life, they literally don't kickstart. And that I've seen in many women to lead to a very long period of these like famous menopausal symptoms of suddenly sleep doesn't work so well and you break out in sweat or stuff. So I mean, if you can in that period be very kind to yourself in many ways, which as much as possible, obviously, but it really helps to keep these very famous symptoms low and keep their duration shorter, I find in my observations.
I agree with you. I agree with what you said. That's so beautiful. Thank you. Everything you all three of you just, spewing gems, pearls of wisdom. Amazing. So I'm going to discuss, I just want to say something because there's so much connection. I know we try to keep things to bodily changes, physical, relationship, emotional, spiritual, but the thread is just it goes through all and back. It's like you have this weaving, so it's sometimes hard to separate 100%. Bettina, when you talk about the stress and the insomnia and the sweats, and I think that so many people fear having a what's called a hot flash, and we can call it a different name, but every woman who comes to me, I make eye contact. And Chava, you mentioned that. Look at yourself in the eye. When you start going through menopause, you start looking people in the eyes and holding their gaze. So I look people in the eyes, and sometimes I will hold their hand and say, you've had hot flashes before. Any woman on this earth, even if you haven't had a baby, has had hormonals up and down. And any woman who has had a baby has either been running to turn the thermostat of the air conditioning down, woken up in the middle of the night and cannot sleep because they're sweating, or opens the windows and runs outside, or when everyone's, bundled up, they're hot, running hot. And after you've had a baby, when you have that incredible cascade of hormones changing from a pregnant woman to a non-pregnant woman, every woman goes through night sweats or sweats. And even as a nursing mom, sometimes you'll nurse your baby and suddenly it's like, you're getting hot there. So we are familiar with this. It's not new. So that's number one. Why fear something that you're familiar with? And acknowledge that your body's doing this for a reason. So there are ways to deal with it and sail through it. Shouldn't be terribly unpleasant. I know so many women who go and work out as more and more as they age. They become, they run marathons. Come on, are you scared of sweating? No. And we can say that about everything. And I'm going to quickly broach something before we move on. And that is, as women, as Betina said, the flame goes a little lower. We tend our bodily functions, our inner juice tends to dry up a little. And that's also normal and part of that, and something that every woman who's had a child knows about. And that's part of our cycles. And what happens when this happens is, we have an opportunity to deepen relationships. We have an opportunity at this point in our lives to create and accept and explore intimacy, as opposed to that roller coaster of hormones to procreate. So on a lower fire and a little more dry, like the winter can be beautiful. We can create an inner and outer winter wonderland together with meaningful relationships.
I love that. I love the winter wonderland with meaningful relationships. And that's the perfect segue. I mean, we could talk about all of the physical things, and you can find a lot of that stuff in books. But the next thing that I'd like to talk about that you can't find so easily in books is the relationship changes when you go through this process. So that looking people in the eye and holding their gaze, genius. Okay, the deepening relationships that we've already alluded to, and the friendships that we've alluded to, that's for real. Betina, it's David Winston who talks about the tribe, right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
David Winston, who always says, every woman at that period in life, go out and find your tribe. It's more important than ever, this sense of connection that you've been talking about so beautifully right now, Gilla. And I think it also works a bit the other way. I will share something from myself. I found myself also almost cleaning up a little bit in my acquaintance circle. You kind of have this feeling you have no more time and will for nonsense. So there's lots of people around us who are sweet and kind in their way, yet we do not succeed to really build a very momentous and more deeper connections with them. And that is very important, I find, in this period. So I hear lots of women say, not just me, they said, like, look, I have now cleaned up in my circle here, because here are all these vampires, and those I don't want. I want meaningful, interactions with other people, with other women. I want to go for the real thing, not just about where are you going for your next vacation. No? I mean, there's more of this need, and I think it's important to listen to that need as well. Go find your tribe.
Yeah, language alert. I call this the no bullshit phase. So
I was just biting my tongue to avoid that word. I wanted to be so proper.
I did it for you. I went the low road so you can maintain the high road, Betina. But it's the no bullshit phase, right? So I started getting very agitated, and I remember talking with Betina and with Gilla, and I don't know if I've talked with Chava about this, but I'm sure it is the case. I've definitely talked with her about the agitation part, but not as it relates maybe to the menopausal process. But this agitation that becomes untenable with people who are bullshitting me all the time, or bullshitting other people, or all kinds of bullshit flying in every direction. And it is a sign of the times. It's a sign of the menopausal process times specifically. And if you talk with those women that are going through the process or have gone through the process, they'll tell you the same. I've heard it from nearly everybody when I've asked about this, who's been through the menopausal process. So that definitely, I went through kind of my friends circle and started weeding out people, and some of it was really hard because, like Betina said, there's really sweet and nice people, but it's going like there's nothing in it for me. I feel like I'm giving, and I've been giving, and I'm not saying not to give, of course not, but I'm saying like you don't have to give everywhere to everyone all the time. Like, you can choose when you want to give. You can kind of like temper pace. You can pace yourself a bit, and not, when we have the little kids, it's like they wake up in the middle of the night, they need to eat, they need a hug, they had a nightmare, that You have to give. You don't even get to ask, or at least I didn't ask myself, what do I want? Oh, I want to sleep. Who cares? Who cares what you want? The baby needs food. The baby needs whatever. So now it's the time where I'm finding I can stop and say, you know what? I don't need to do this. I can stop for a second and think if this is something I want to give and also not feel guilty about it because I am pacing myself. I only have so much to give. And when I spread myself too thin, nobody gets what they need, including me. So that's happening in the friendship circle. That's happening in the relationship with the children as well as they grow. And it's happening in the marriage phase. So I'm going to pass it on to someone else to continue that thought. Chava?
Yeah. So a while ago, I noticed that just like our thinning hair, as I'm also thinning my people around me, and like laser focus on who I let in and who I keep distance to. And I have these boundaries that include exactly what it is that I'm looking for, because every day when I get up, for me, stagnation is death. I cannot not be learning, not be doing, not getting my hands dirty, not always, thinking of new things and new ideas. And if my creativity dies, I do. That's how I feel. So if I'm not surrounding myself with inspiring people like you, people who ask questions, we kind of went through the whole COVID era where everyone just kind of dried up and got zombie eyes and stopped asking questions. And I'm looking around everywhere like, wait, what happened to the questions? I've got a million questions. And so I pushed all those people away and found other people who had questions. And positivity, people who bring in this amazing positive energy. It feeds me. And when I get fed, I also am giving off that same kind of thing. People who are willing to have new views and look in a different direction and think of new takes on an old theme. And I'm also finding myself reconnecting with like my old high school buddies and people who knew me before I went through all of this life changing, having children, whatever. It was like we knew each other when we were like these pure, still, wide eyes, looking at the world, wanting to know more and more and more. And we've really connected. More in the recent years. We might have lost touch for a long time, but it was so important. Like Betina's poem, getting your roots. Your roots are now thirsty and they are spreading out, and you're going back to your true self. And so these are the people that I am surrounding myself, and it might be very few people, and that's fine. I don't need a big social circle. I'm not in that anymore. I don't know if I ever was, but if I was going to be, it was when I was much younger. And this has like become so important to me. The inspiration, the positivity, and curiosity and creativity.
I love like the thinning hair. I'm thinning the people in my inner circle. That's a good way to remember what to do. Talking about being alone, and it's okay if I'm alone, I can spend time with myself. It made me think about a video, which maybe we can take us into the marriage aspect of this, a video of a woman who was talking about how men around middle age for women tend to ask for a divorce. I have some friends going through it right now, actually. And we can talk about, hopefully Betina can weigh in on some of the physiological incompatibilities at this time. But this woman said that a lot of times if a woman asks for a divorce, the husband will say, is there someone else? And that's because when a man asks for a divorce, usually there is. And this woman said, she was telling her husband, no, I'm not leaving you for someone else. I'm leaving you for me. And it's a very different reality for women and men at this middle-age period, I don't think I could say it any better. A lot of times men are looking for someone else, and the women are saying, wait a minute, I want to get back in touch with who I am, and I want to be in a relationship that's good for me and also meets my needs. Because many times women are so fully engaged in meeting the needs of their children and their partners for so much of their younger life. So maybe, Betina, you can talk about some of the incompatibilities biologically at that time
Talk
between men
about
and
some
women.
hard biological truths in plain language. That's what you want me to do. Well, it's really quite puzzling. But I mean, at this point in life, we talk about the bad guy that then goes out and has an affair or wants to, separate. But I mean, we are really biological, not so well matched at that age. That's just the fact. I mean, before we were, I mean, there was the same interests. We create our seed. And I always like to remind people at this point, we consider ourselves these higher intelligent beings, but the part of our brain that is actually the so-called animal brain is still close to 80%. I mean, it's really a huge part that is simmering all underneath our wonderful intelligence and all our values and ethics, which are beautiful, of course. But it's still there. And I mean, and it's just much easier to acknowledge it instead to say, oh, I'm so above that. No, we are not. It is there. Of course, we want to make decisions not based on that, but it's important to acknowledge that. And when you're in your 50s here and you are the same age as your partner, there is just a biological mismatch because the man is still on a point where nature tells him go out and spread your seed. I mean, it's simply there, right? Whereas the woman is at a point where this is totally over for her, and where of course also the inclinations in this direction really, really go down. So what do? Suddenly you find yourself in this phase. And then most people, again, who prepares us for this? Have our mothers talked to us about this? No, they haven't. It came as a huge surprise to me that things are changing in this department as well. And Gilla, you hinted at there was also an opportunity there, maybe for deeper connection, for more intimacy. But it is important to acknowledge that, and in a relationship, you need to talk about this. This is the situation. My body has changed. Juices are drying up. This has a consequence. My hormones are lower. I don't, run after and feel like I need to have 3 more children. Obviously, something changed. It was much easier in the old days. We never reached that age, right? I mean, we women, we were lucky if we survived the first 2 children, right? We were sure dying in childbirth, Gila, I mean, how many times, right? So it is in many ways a new situation in the modern world, right? So it's again something that needs to be dealt with, that needs to be talked about. There needs to be an openness, and many people have relationships where this openness hasn't been created. You fell in love, you had your children, you were busy being mother and father. There was anyway nothing else. Suddenly, you're not mother and father, you're husband and wife, and suddenly everything is different than it used to be. And it is, yeah, it's maybe not easy to have these conversations, right?
Yeah.
And it takes 2 to have these conversations, right? But I also want to very consciously, because don't do this finger pointing at men also. I think it's also unfair because for them it's sometimes even harder. Did their mothers really talk to them about what might happen when they age with their wife? Why not? I mean, let's do that better with our children. That's all I can say. I'm trying to be very honest about all this. I have a boy. I'm trying to make all this very, very this is how nature made it. No mysteries. And I can highly recommend that.
Gilla, is there a way to cultivate space for sexual arousal and desire? Can it happen if the juices are drying up?
100%. And again, I like to tread very carefully when I talk about this, and I don't often talk about this. Yes, it's not game over. It's not game over. So that's first of all. And I know a lot of women dread this. Like, I still, want to have that part of my being and that part of a relationship. So it's not game over. And again, first of all, I always say, go back, go back. Take a few steps back. What happened after you had a baby? Did you have a break there for a while? Didn't you love that break while you nurtured your body, while you reclaimed yourself as a mother and forged that relationship with your baby and healed, and then resumed, being a sexual woman? Well, this is very similar. It's not game over, but there's a pause. And that pause is for us, actually, in many, many ways. And when we view it that way, we can gently reclaim it that way and allow ourselves space to grow, to reclaim ourselves. And we're not likely, and I'm not saying this for everyone, but we may not go back to being the same way that we were. But when a relationship can weather this, and you can forge a deeper relationship with the partner, and you can have intimacy, there is nothing that is more attractive to a woman than intimacy. And I am not speaking personally, but I work also with a lot of women, and I see this across the board. It is the most attractive thing. So that can so help that as well and nurture that part of us that we fear is going to lie dormant forever. It's not game over, but it is different. And the slower pace can be amazing. It really can, because it opens up that place where we can become the elders we are supposed to become. And many of us hesitate stepping into that because, like Chava said, we look at our grandmothers and we like, I don't want to be her. And then one day you wake up and you're like, I'm a grandmother and I love it. So there is also, and again, this is how we're conditioned. We have an opportunity to not only look back at ourselves and know that we've been there before. And again, I know women who will turn to hormones, whether bioidentical, there's 101 different names. But at the same time, if you keep your pouch and, certain nutrition and herbs and creating, the womb is the seat of creation. What happens when your womb's no longer, growing those babies? Start creating. Like Chava said, if she doesn't create, I'm the same way. And it doesn't mean you have to crochet blankets or make, the four of us have a very rich inner life because we enjoy our own company and we're always busy. I always feel like I have a train chasing me. Oh, finish this blanket so I can start something else. Or, even making herbal products. I'm like, oh my gosh, now I make magnesium lotion 3 nights in a row till 2 a.m. I'm like, I got it. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be as simple as creating new friends, as creating new channels, as creating a new menu, as creating a little garden on your windowsill. Such little things are amazing, and view it as such. So you start to create. You have this unbelievable creative energy that you can create. And the relationships, because our body demands and our psyche demands, and it's rightful, deep, meaningful relationships, we have to go back because we're, like Chava said, she's connecting with people of her other self. So we kind of have to take this thread and weave it through the old self we were, the next self we became, and the self we are now in our winter wonderland. So we need to kind of reclaim who we were, but it's not going to be the same because we have our silver crown, right? We wear a silver crown that is to attest to a life well lived. and gives us the right, so to speak, to be that cranky old lady or to be the one who initiates the healing in a family. Be the matriarch. Look to our ancient ancestors, or not so ancient, and heal the generational trauma that we all carry. And in our earliest selves, we might have pushed it aside. And I don't want to use words because Rivkah and Betina already used words, but maybe I will. Forgive my French. Shit comes to the surface. It floats. So anything we didn't deal with at 18, 20, 30, 35, 39, maybe 40, it's going to rise. But guess what? We wear a silver crown and we now have pearls of wisdom to deal with it in a different way. We can be the healing matriarch of ourselves, our ancestors, our families, our kids, our grandkids, and revel in that. And when we do that, menopause becomes the winter wonderland.
Chava, do you want to toss anything into the mix right now at this juncture?
Yeah, well, just one thing. When we're talking about this is a time for deepening relationships and more intimacy, because we are actually, our psyche and everything is craving it. Sometimes it doesn't come from our other half. He's not there yet, or if he ever will be. And we need to deal with this because it's not easy. We're growing, we're getting all this wisdom, we've had so much experience and self-sacrifice and on and on and on. And we get to this point where, wow, I am a queen and I deserve everything that a queen, has coming to her, including everything that I have to give, but what I have also deserved. And it's not freely flowing over. And we might feel like you said, I'm leaving you for me. Does it have to become that? I don't, everyone makes their whatever, but we need to be able to deal with that situation. And I would, for myself or anyone, you try and put in your head, channeling this intimacy and channeling what it is that you need and what you're looking for and what you can give and what you want to get back. If it's not from your direct partner, as again, looking out, looking at your friends, even yourself, even your children, even your mother or grandmother or someone that you really want to connect with on a deeper level that you never had time for before. It can be, instead of stifling, it can be liberating. It can be absolute freedom because you had this thing that you had, all these things that you had to do for so long, took up so much of your time and your energy and everything. All of a sudden now you can channel all of this wonderful energy and make it your liberation time, your absolute freedom to do what you want and get what you need, even though it's not the guy who's sitting next to you.
So the mismatch between husbands and wives at this time is not only biological, but very often, and not in all circumstances, right? It is a common thing that, as far as like understanding and spiritual connection and all of these different, emotional connection, that partners may not be evenly matched at this time either. And that's going to come to the surface. Shit rises, as Gilla said so beautifully, so eloquently. This is the most curse-filled show we've ever done. Okay, so shit rises, and it's here in this period of time. And so restructuring, renegotiating the marriage. So now with my Kala teacher hat on, we've got periods of time in Judaism, I'm speaking from my tradition, where husbands and wives don't touch. They have no physical connection at all in the monthly cycle. And what we're taught is during that time, we should develop emotional closeness and intimacy in other ways. There's no touch, not even like indirect touch. Like I pass a fork to my husband. it's completely, there's a mechitza, there's a veil, there's a separator. And so a lot of us may not have invested, I'm speaking from my own personal experience, the way I could have during that time, because life gets in the way, but really invested in that deepening of ways to connect that aren't physical with one's partner. And so whether you're Jewish or not, whether that's part of your tradition or not, it's kind of still, it doesn't matter. We're this is a great equalizer for women and for couples. We all kind of come to this point. So just know, if you're experiencing that situation, it's normal. It's perfectly normal to need to go, maybe even through some kind of third party, to restructure the relationship, to try and make that work. And it's not easy for men, because they're not going through the spiritual, physical changes that we are at the same time in the same way. They are going through changes, and they are going through midlife changes, but it's not the same way, and it's not with that maybe as deep and as fast or as concentrated as it is for us. And I wanted to address, because we touched on it, if we could, maybe Betina could bring it up, some of the ancestral connections that might get in the way in this period of time with there's like a feeling of annoyance with men, maybe, or with our own men, even if we've got wonderful men in our lives. It's not something against the men. It's something deeper. As we go into our roots, we start to tap in to these ancestral roots and generational traumas. So I'll pass it over there.
Yeah, I mean, first, exactly. It's also that in a way we have an advantage as women there. Our ability to in this period of our life to connect to the roots, to literally come in contact with what has been before. I mean, it can also be really a source of strength. We have information available, we have understanding available that the person next to us does not have available, and it's exactly as you guys said before. I mean, you just cannot expect the other person, male or not male, just the other person to follow, because all that happens with a pretty high speed. And I think what you meant, Rivkah, where I might be going is with some of this contact to the ancestral knowledge. There comes, of course, it can be generational trauma from within the families. But I wonder, and this is really just a loose hypothesis, it's something I feel, that our connection to the tribe, also to the women tribe, I mean, goes, of course, back to a time where women were, I mean, what were we? We were being hunted, and we were being abused and exploited. And I said we were lucky if we were allowed to die in childbirth. So I wonder if sometimes at least some of us feel some more of this through the eons, that and we might react to that too. But what I know for sure is that we come with new knowledge and new understanding at a pretty high speed, and this can be really overwhelming to the man on our side. At our side, also by reclaiming, you said, Rivkah, in the beginning a bit, this reclaiming your old self. You're getting some of this back, some of the things you kind of left behind, yet you're in a new place. You're actually in a place of higher power. So some of these things you're picking up, and I see women go with this. I mean, the poor man at your side, if I put myself in his shoes, of course he stands there and doesn't know at all what to do, right? So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Gilla, you're muted.
Hi. I love the reference to the ancestral trauma. And just, I think as we age and as we quieten our inner selves to connect more, we gain. And we also, in the Jewish tradition, we say when you reach 40 or 50, you get Bina, which is wisdom. So at every age, no matter our life experience or what we learn or study, we actually receive wisdom. We hope to receive some wisdom and hopefully we can understand it. So I really connect with that, and I think that it's a really important part of our aging and claiming or reclaiming the woman, the essence of the feminine in us as an elder, in our lives, in our families, in our communities, and in the world. And there is no doubt, no matter where you hail from in the world, you have ancestors who were hunted or killed or repressed. There were women, generations of women who suffered quietly or not, or had unthinkable things happen. And so many women, you know, we're not going to go there, but yes, we all know what we're talking about. So it makes sense that we will, sometimes this will come up and we won't even know where it's from. And one of the things that I find helpful is to try to connect to ancestors that we know there was a time where society was a matriarchal society. We may not know all the details. We may not have facts, all the facts in the history books. We may not have the commentary here and there, but we know there is evidence that there was a time that there was a matriarchal society before there was a patriarchal society. So whether it was global, whether it was in a family or a village or a spiritual realm, or I don't even know what words to use, that is part of what helps me to weather these resentments or feelings that come up, is to reclaim that part and to look to that part and try to read stories of women, whether they be facts, whether they be biographies, whether they be legends, whether they be lore, whether they be from the Torah, whether they be from, you know, a different culture. It doesn't matter. We all live on this planet. We've all been here before and will, God willing, hopefully likely be here again. And it's just the cycle of life. So I find trying to connect to women that were known to be leaders of their time and elders of their time, and to try and connect to that to help to weather the generational trauma that comes up for all of us. Because as women, you said, like, I love how you said it, Betina, like, you know, there's the partner standing there like, what happened to my woman? What happened to my wife? What happened to my mom? You know, it's like, hello. So I find this really helpful to know that it's been before and will be again. And it's just part of what we go through. And, you know, we all worry that reclaiming ourselves and being kind to ourselves and doing for ourselves, sometimes there's a little fine line between that and becoming this cantankerous old lady who seems even selfish. And so again, connecting with women who we know were elders and part of a matriarchal system helps us to understand that while we don't need to nurse kids, we don't need to have a 6-course meal on a Friday night anymore, or sometimes, but we can still do what comes naturally to us, which is nurture. We can nurture, we can see it. The intention is different. When we intend to nurture ourselves and be kind to ourselves and to forgive ourselves, we will be more forgiving of others and accepting. And when we're dealing with family, it can be extremely challenging. So again, connecting to that part where we know these people, these women, were women who did for others, who created and led, or who inspired, or who connected to a tribe. You know, all of these things can help us to weather these generational traumas and to heal. And when we deal with certain things and heal, it has a ripple effect. And so as women, when shit floats, we might even have regrets and resentments from years past with a partner, a parent, a child, and these things will repeat themselves and come up. But we now have an opportunity to step into shoes of an elder. How would an elder deal with this? Would she be like me and first get triggered? Or would she take space to say, what am I feeling and why? And acknowledge and give yourself a hug. And then go deal with it in the way that an elder would. And then one day you wake up and you step out of bed and you're like, I'm the granny, I'm the old lady. And guess what? It's okay.
As we're wrapping up, that's a really great segue to get into the roles of the transformative self and leadership. So I'm going to pass this to Chava in a minute. I just wanted to say that what I read, Betina said earlier that I said it, but I was just reading what Betina said. So I just want to go on the record with that. I was reading Betina's words. I realized through that conversation with Betina that I had really put myself, that person that I left with my roots, I put that girl on ice when I went to raise a family and, you know, support my husband in his business and career quests and all these things. And so now and it was on ice. And now it's thawing. And in the beginning, I was going, wait, I'm not ready for you to be thawed yet. And so maybe it wasn't like I was actively thawing this. It just started happening, just like going into labor. You don't control that. It just kind of happens in its own time, in the right time. And that's a divine time. That's, you know, that's what it is. And it started to thaw and I couldn't resist the call. I couldn't unhear what I was hearing. And I had to make some transformative shifts that were not in the same direction I've been heading in for the past 20 years plus. All of a sudden I had to like go over there and go back into my roots and try and pick up those pieces that may or may not be compatible with the woman I became over the years, and then try and figure out how I can move forward with the parts that are compatible and how I can work around the parts that aren't, and how I can change the things that maybe I should be in better alignment with the old me. So anyway, I want to pass it over to Chava to get her thoughts about that, and then taking this transformative energy, like Gilla said, to move into the elder space, the leadership role, the archetypal elder, the one that everyone's supposed to respect and is supposed to call and ask for advice, and, you know, who's done it all before and has been there. And that's what this whole show has been about, is we're at various stages of being there, and we're trying to share that with all of you so that you don't feel alone and that you can lead the way for those who come after. So Chava.
So one thought, I've known some really bitchy and crotchety and grumpy old women, and it's because they didn't have these conversations. And thank you, ladies, for doing this, because I don't have that grandmother role. I never did. And so we all just kind of go through these motions of life with no direction and no support and no new ideas and no inspiring creativity to navigate it. And I hope that people share this conversation, because that's all it is, the starting point, so that people can maybe ease into these conversations between mothers and daughters and fathers and sons. And of course, across the board, we all talk to our sons as well. But I was just telling the ladies before, I made a trip to Scotland over the summer. And one thing that just was so obvious and so ingrained in the society without them even trying, but was this reverence for children to emulate and look up to their parents. And I did not grow up in a society like that. it was always like, you don't like this, and they're always telling you what to do, and there's this constant battle between parent and child. But in Scotland, it was exactly as it should be and it used to be everywhere. I'm sure it was prevalent in old societies. The boys revere their fathers and do every word is gospel. And the little daughters the same with their mothers. And if you grow up like that, with no question of who you are to be and how to deal with life in every stage, because you're watching this person who is your motivation and your mirror of who you will be in the future as a child, you don't have these questions in general, like we are, having to come up with this. They know their place in the world. They know that who they're supposed to be. And I'm not talking what you're going to do as a career or, these are normal things that you go through life. But as an emotional person, a connected, liberated person, you walk through life with this self-confidence that is just going out wherever you are, a light unto everyone else, just from this simple relationship of respect, reverence, and inspiration from your own parents. And I hope that through these conversations with our own children, they will then have a better navigational reference compass than we did. And I'm speaking for myself. I'm not for you, but meaning, which is why this is so important, right? So it's not just, oh, let's heal ourselves. It's no, let's heal the next chain in what's coming for our own kids.
Maybe some final thoughts on the topic. Where do we go from here? We've got our silver crown. We put on the pearls of wisdom. Parting thoughts, where do we go from here as women?
It's a very large question for a wrap up, Rivkah. I think the most beautiful wrap up is what Gilla said about step into the role of the elder. Step into the role that nature has created here for you. I talked about rewards in the beginning, I think and you were saying, oh, rewards, thinning hair and so on. But I think we mentioned a lot of those. There is a lightness in us to dealing with things that is, for me, it's a huge reward. And this, like stepping into the shoes of the elders, actually being that elder. And by this, not becoming this selfish, cranky old person that you said, but by this actually having a calling that is as large as the ones we had before, if we take it on.
I like that a lot. Yes. Yes. And I agree with that. And I think, just reiterating, finding the tribe, connect, find other women and women of all ages. I absolutely love the fact that I can say I have friends who are 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and more. And so find your tribe. They don't have to be going through menopause, but, find women that you connect with deeply, that you can have a real relationship, you can have real friendship, you can have camaraderie, So really reaching out of yourself, maybe during the child raising years, it was more of befriending other women who might have been friends, mothers of our kids' friends, or in the same circles as our kids. And now, like you said, lighter and we're liberated, we can make friends, when we travel to Scotland, Guatemala, or Canada or Switzerland, or in our local town or at a park, or, And again, movement. Rivkah, you spoke about that. I think movement is so important. Movement helps the stagnation and helps the feeling of stuck. When our body feels stuck, sometimes our minds are getting stuck, and we all need that movement. So change, don't fear change, wave fear goodbye. We don't need that anymore. And embrace change. Try something new, try a different color, try a different style of clothing, try new menus, so the movement, to garden, you don't have to be a master gardener, just dig in the soil, walk on the beach barefoot. Just give your body these opportunities to move things through. And really, that's what it's all about. And letting go. Letting go is probably one of the hardest things out of everything. I think forgiveness, personally, is easier than letting go. It's all part and connected, but letting go as mothers who have devoted all of our lives to our children, and we have given up and sacrificed so much for their physical, emotional, spiritual, you name it. And at some point, we have to let go. I'm famous for saying, not my monkey, not my circus. But when it comes to our kids, they are our beloved kids. They're our beloved monkeys. So, but we don't need to be part of the circus anymore. So that's what we need to let go. They have their journey. They're not going to be mini me's or mini you's. And it's liberating because, yes, they still trigger us. And sometimes, me personally, I react. And then afterwards, I'm like, why did I do that? So I'm grateful because even at this point, they still do that. And I have an opportunity to learn and grow, right? But just stepping back a little and having relationship with them, that each child, is, you're going to have different relationships. Some might go really deep, some might not. But since we're not part of the circus anymore and they're on their journeys, that's a part of letting go and relating to them as adults and beloved children, that we no longer conduct the orchestra. So it's part liberating as well. But it is hard. It's probably one of the hardest things, but that's also something to consider as we move forward on our own journey.
Yeah, that relationship needs reworked as well. We talked about reworking the marriage, restructuring it. And the parent-child relationship needs restructured too. I want to clarify, I think it's clear enough, but I know that we'll get the tomatoes thrown by the one person, who it wasn't clear for. So when we say letting go, we're not advocating for total abandonment of your children. And I want to be clear because in my parents' generation and grandparents' generation, that was part of it. Part of it was you're 18, you're on your own, that's it. You're homeless, enjoy. I'm done, completely done with all contact with everything. Maybe come home for a holiday once a year or something like that. That's not what we're advocating for. It's important to restructure the relationship so that we are leading. As I think it was Gilla, but maybe I'm messing that up. I'm sorry. Someone talked about stepping into the matriarchal archetype or the matriarchal role. That's a different type of letting go. It's like Gilla said, not conducting anymore. We're not doing that anymore. But we're leading by example. My rabbi gave a beautiful lecture many years ago. We were the youngest people, my husband and I, in the room because we follow him everywhere. We'll sit at his feet anywhere and listen to what he has to say. But he talked with an older crowd that was, 60, 70 and up, and talked with them about the role of leadership and stepping into that role because it's kind of been abandoned by Western culture. And And he said, listen to what the younger generation is saying, listen to their ideas, be present to hear them, but don't follow after them. Continue to lead, go in your own way. And I think that really kind of sums it up. It's not an abandonment. It's you're here, you're present, you're hearing their thoughts and ideas, but you're continuing on the path that you know is right. And they can see that. And if they ever want, need that example for later on in life, they have it. It's in their memory and their sense memory. Chava, maybe some final words from you as well.
Well, I think this all leads to, this is going to happen whether we like it or not. And we can look at it as a blessing or a curse. And that kind of will lead us on to the decisions that we're going to make, covering everything that we've talked about here. But to see it always in your mind's eye and in your prayers and in your thoughts during the day and your relationships and your kindness to other people or whatever, that it is a blessing. The young stage was a blessing. The middle stage was a blessing. And now this stage is an absolute blessing. We just need to embrace that and appreciate it for what it is. And then from there, everything will fall into place.
Okay, thank you, ladies, so much. Lowell Aria had to leave, so we're going to close out the show right now. Thank you for joining, and we will see you next time.